Many claim they like riding, but I know that they ain't. Ride or die. I go hard in the paint, yeah, homie, I'm a saint. Ride or die. Many claim they like riding, but I know that they ain't. They see the red and they call me a devil, but mind the treble, let me level with you. I used to idolize rappers that paint they face, but now I rock the blood of Christ ever since I've been saved by grace.
Flo, I was gonna wait till you finished and then respond back.
Well, you can go ahead now. This isn't a dictatorship. Just if you could answer the first question, and then definitely, I'd love to hear your conception of Jesus. But do you believe the narrative that when a Christian leaves Christianity, that he is worshiping, or not worshiping, but he gets to keep the same Jesus in Islam?
So if you're saying, if a Christian becomes a Muslim, does he still believe in the same Jesus? If I've understood your question in that manner, um, I wouldn't say it's the same Jesus, but his the historical figure, um, the the Virgin Son of Mary. Yes, I would say that belief isn't tarnished or taken away or diminished, but rather um, more exemplified. So on that basis, yes.
So, what do you mean by more exemplified?
So when you have first source, so for example, if you have to follow, help me, you have to. I wish I could do a diagram for you to follow. Sometimes it's easier to visualize something than just to hear it. But if I was to do a flowchart for you, if God is all knowing and God is a witness over all things, whatever God tells you about any person in the past has to be obviously true and factual, correct?
Yes, but that's not really pertinent to my question.
I'll explain. I'm just building a foundation. So the reason being it exemplifies is because whatever we're taught about Jesus and we prove that it's from God, then it exemplifies his character, his prophethood, his mission, versus whatever may be out there, which isn't from God or can stand the test of basic inquiry and investigation.
No, I get your thought. It's the same way that I reject everything that Muhammad taught, said, because I don't believe that actually came from God. And so, because I believe I have what God wanted us to have, I would argue the same thing. So I can get where the argument would be made if we could demonstrate that the Quran is actually from God. But my issue and my concern would be, though, because we can't, not to any degree where everybody's going to become a Muslim, then you have to look at the two characters and just do a character analysis. And you find that both figures are vastly different. The Jesus depicted in the Bible speaks vastly different than the Jesus that speaks in the Quran. It's like polar opposite messages.
I would have to disagree with you there. Uh, we are able to establish what is from God and what isn't from God, because if you're going to say, the Quran isn't from God, I would like to know what yardstick you are using to come to that conclusion. And then likewise, use that same yardstick to remain consistent and apply it to the Bible. Um, so on that basis, To reject one over the other, it can't be just a flippant, it can't be just emotional. It has to be a
Um,
thorough investigative process.
I guess
Um,
my
so
yardstick, just to give you like a slight yardstick we can start measuring with, is that I don't believe that God, and this will sound kind of insulting at first, and I don't mean it to, but I don't believe that God is incompetent in the sense that he would give a revelation to all these prophets, and he couldn't maintain the revelation consistently enough that we could understand and generalized his message. And I know that the argument of the Quran is similar, that a perfect book from God should have no contradictions, and but we wouldn't say that the Bible has to be free of contradictions. But when you're looking at this and you're saying that the book is from God and it should be maintained and preserved, that kind of self defeats a little bit, because you're also at the same time claiming that everything else that God presented wasn't preserved and wasn't maintained, and is corrupted. And so now God has to come down thousands of years later and put a criterion in to reinterpret all this other stuff that got messed up. For me, that is a huge stumbling block when I already have texts that I can verify in a general sense are primarily reserved. Even through atheist scholarships will tell me that the majority of the Old Testament, uh, we can verify that it's the same text that were there 300 years before Jesus was born.
um, so just to respond to a couple of points that you've made a presupposition of God's intent of the previous messages and missions of prophets. So you and I, at least on your part, you can't say that God gave revelation with the intention of it to be preserved absolutely. However, in the Islamic corpus, in our text, we have that statement from God. So your first presupposition is what leads you to your stumbling block that
Just,
you've confessed yourself.
just
Um,
here for a few more minutes before we go to another one, because I think you're asserting that. Yeah, but I don't think that you can actually demonstrate that either, because you're asserting that that criterion is there for the Quran. I'm asserting that I believe that if God is God, that He could maintain a consistent message in a general sense, and I think that's an easier claim to substantiate. You have to claim that the general message of God was not maintained, but then in the Quran He maintained it.
well, this is again. Not to fall foul of the tu quo fallacy, but if that's the stance that you're going to take, then you have to accept that the New Testament does not stand, because the Jews for at least 1400 years had a um, a complex and a thorough um, uh, uh, theological literature, the Old Testament, the Tanakh. They had the rabbinical system, and the teachings from the rabbis, the Talmud and the Mishnah, and various other scripts. So if you are going to accept that, you know, God has preserved, and the Islamic position is incorrect, then you have to accept that the New Testament is also falling foul of it, because the Jews will turn around and say, well, we've got the Torah, we've got the teaching, the Tanakh, the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketubim. We don't need a New Testament,
It's
and anything in it contradicts the Old Testament. So
completely
that
different.
you'll have that problem to deal with if you are going to take the stance that you've just iterated.
No, Muhammad, it's completely different, unfortunately, because for Christians, and some of the literature that you're quoting was not there before Christianity. Some of that literature was developed while Christianity was developed, and while Christianity was well established. Some of the different sources. Now, when it comes to the text, Christians maintain that the text was preserved. So that still fits within my narrative. And we also believe that the New Testament confirms the Old Testament and that the Old Testament speaks to the New Testament. So it's very different because the Islamic conception is that both these are corrupt and can't be trusted, and you need the Quran to interpret it. The New Testament says that the Old Testament was not corrupted, and you don't need the New Testament to flesh out corruption. That those are two very different claims.
Well, again, if I was to use your same argument that you've used, I can apply it to Christianity as well. The New Testament canonization of the New Testament occurred I believe, in the 4th century. So that's some 400 years removed after Jesus. So a lot of the church fathers and the literature that the ecumenical councils and the teachings from these church fathers and these councils are well removed by centuries from Jesus Christ himself. And second of all, just as you are appealing to Christian belief about the Old Testament and Jewish understanding, the Jews totally reject it as well, as you are rejecting the Quran. So if you like I said, if you use the same yardstick, if you apply it to the Quran and you apply it to the New Testament, you have to be equal in it. So
I'm gonna let Chris go in a sec. I'm just gonna say is that you didn't really address my point. I think you shifted around my point because both are making very different claims. And I'll say this and then I'll let Chris go and then let you guys talk for a minute. But the New Testament is claiming that God maintained his word. This was his scripture. This is the word of God. The Quran is saying it, that scripture is not maintained. It's corrupted. You need the Quran as the criterion. You can't trust the older scriptures. Christianity is not doing that within the New Testament. It's two night and day different claims. But Chris, I'm gonna let you go, and then you and Muhammad can go back and forth for.
Well, that was half of what I was going to say. I was going to say that I think that he's missing your point in that Christians don't say that the Old Testament is corrupted and that the New Testament is the criterion to understand what is true and what is not true within the Old Testament. But that's exactly what we see with the Quran. The Quran believes it's the standard to judge what is true and what is not true between the previous scriptures. So I think he still has to address that. But going out on a limb here, and I just want to quickly address the misconception about the New Testament that you're speaking about. We actually have early apostolic church fathers, right back to even Polycarp, Ignatius, Clement of Rome, Justin Martyr, and this is within the first 150 years of the death of our Lord and Savior. We actually have them quoting the books of the New Testament. So within the first 170 years, at least 22 books of the New Testament were quoted by the apostolic church fathers. So no, it wasn't something that was written later in time. It was written during the lives of the apostles, and the followers of the apostles wrote about them as well. So just a little heads up there. I didn't know if you knew that.
thank you for that. I'm going to respond to James and Chris at the same time, starting with the first point. Otherwise, I'll end up forgetting. Um, I if again, like I said, I'm not, I'm not avoiding answering the question. I'm establishing a yardstick, and if you're saying that the Quran sets itself as a standard, um, because it believes that it's corrupt, well, then likewise, I'm making the statement, so I'm hoping it's clear. The Jews for 1400 years believed in a unipersonal God. Without the New Testament, there would not be the belief of the Trinity. The New Testament sets up a new criterion. Without the New Testament, you would not have the Trinity. And this is what needs to be understood. So if you're
That's
going
not
to say,
100% true, Muhammad.
so, no, this is the example that I'm giving you because, I'm trying to apply the same yardstick. And if we're going to be fair, which is, the New Testament affirms the Old Testament, then you have to accept that for 1400 years at least, before the incarnation of Jesus Christ, as you believe, were unipersonal Unitarian believers of.
That's not 100.
Can you name the
Would
Jews that believed in Trinity?
Would you like me to cite you to Jewish scholars that write on this? And I can actually, if you want, once I get on my computer later, if you send me a message, I can send you these links of their dissertations that they wrote for their PhDs as well. One is a Jewish scholar named Dr. Daniel Boyarin, and another one is Alan Segal. I have both of their dissertations, and they're both on binitarianism within the second temple Judaism. So roughly about 2,000 years ago, and even before, there was Jews and Jewish sects that believed in a multi-personal God, not a Unitarian being. So that's just what I'm saying. So the belief that Jews always believed in a Unitarian being isn't 100% correct. And also during the time of Jesus, the Christians at the time were Jews, right? So the Jews did accept Jesus at the time. Not all of them, but a good percentage of them did.
So just to reply back to you, Chris, this is. I don't know if you ever watched a YouTube channel called Blogging Theology. So the owner of the channel gets to interview. He was a former Christian, evangelical
Yeah,
Christian,
I know, Paul.
Paul Williams, and he has, because of his connections and his intelligence, he's interviewed very high profile academics, scholars, and so on and so forth. And on one of his videos, where he is talking with Rabbi Tovia Singer, have you heard of him?
Yeah, I know Tobias Sanger. I know Paul Williams. I've already watched that interview. Yeah, keep going.
Brilliant, and I'm hoping all of it you can recall. And in it, there's a part where Rabbi Tovia Singer makes that distinction between how Muslims, and this is the fundamental part. He makes the argument that Muslims should never call Jesus, even though he's from a Christian. As a Muslim, I object to it. Sorry, even though he's a Jew, as a Muslim, I object to his line of thinking. But this is the argument that he used, which is not to believe in the Christian Jesus because it goes contrary to everything about Judaism, and that the Trinity, any idea of a multi-personal Godhead, goes against 1,000 years, 1,400 years of Judaism. The majority of Jews never believed in anything other than a monotheistic God, and that's factual. Having fringe denominations, just like there are, what do you call them, Latter Day Saints, or Jehovah Witnesses that have other beliefs, they're not proof in itself of the fundamental beliefs of that religion. So if I was to judge Christianity by the basis of the Ebionites, for example, if you've heard of the Ebionites, they never believed in the divinity of Jesus Christ, and they were first century. If I was to give if I was to provide that to you as evidence of Christ not being divine, you'd turn around and say, yeah, but they're Gnostics. They're not mainstream Christianity. Likewise, mainstream Judaism believes in a monotheistic, unipersonal God. Without the New Testament, you can't believe in the Trinity from the Old Testament.
So the only person that you're going to be able to reference is Tovia Singer and modern day Jewish people, right? So I did the same thing. I give you two Jewish scholars that were writing about Second Temple Judaism and what the Jews at that time and even before believed. This is why a lot of the Jews did accept Jesus when he was on the scene. I don't see how you're just passing over that and saying, well, I know that you said this, but Tovia Singer says this. So basically, okay, I've give you two scholars, you've given me one. Where do we go from there? Who's right? Who's wrong? How do
But actually, I can give you Rambam. But this is the whole point. You're the only two scholars that you can give, right? Again, I haven't examined their work. I haven't examined anything that they've said or not said. I'm taking it on face value as to what you are saying about them. It it doesn't go against the mainstream orthodoxy Christianity that is known for at least 14 more than 1400 years now, but prior to Jesus Christ, in comparison for the New Testament to the Old Testament, believing in a monotheistic unipersonal God. You keep on referring to the Second Temple. Second Temple was after Christ, correct?
No, Second Temple was during the time of Christ. The Second Temple was destroyed at 70 AD, 30 some years after the death of Christ.
After Christ, yeah. So apologies for thingy. So again, that's 1400 years before 1400 years of Jewish history is based on the monotheistic belief of God, and Numbers 19:23, that God is not a man. So in no way, shape or form can you provide
But
anything in
you're
mainstream
arguing a straw man right now.
Christianity. Can you give me scholars within mainstream Judaism where the belief of the Trinity existed before the New Testament?
Hey, can I
Well,
please talk?
again, before we get into that, and I don't want to get too far into this because I think we were uh, making the difference between Jesus and Islam and Jesus and Christianity. I just basically wanted to correct you on the Jewish beliefs. You can't say all Jews believe something when they didn't. Now, when you're getting into um, yeah. So when you're getting into what Jews actually believed, you actually have to look into their scholars. Now, just without discrediting these two people, because it's not like I'm quoting somebody. I actually have their dissertations that they write for a PhD. So it's not like it's some hogwash type of material, right? This is what scholars use to determine things. Like that's you know the scholarly method, right? And what dissertations are, right, Muhammad?
Yes, I'm aware.
Excellent. So it's not like these guys just hacked their way through this information. These guys would have been referencing people that knew about the Second Temple Judaism and beforehand and the beliefs that they had. So I know that you don't accept that because of what Tovia Singer says, but again, he's a modern day Jewish man, which doesn't really have a bearing on what my argument is, anyways. But what I really come up here to say is I think one difference that we could truly see within between Jesus of Christianity and Jesus of Islam is the Messiah, right? Christianity's Jesus, he fulfilled the messianic prophecies to be rightfully the Messiah. But in Islam, he's simply just a Messiah because he's anointed. So I don't see how that's the same thing. Would you agree, Muhammad?
Um, so um, I'll work backwards. I'll respond to your last point and then work backwards if you don't mind. I think it would be brilliant to do a fair comparison of the Messiah of Judaism, the Messiah of Christianity, and the Messiah of Islam. When you look at it that way, you'll find that all three of us end up having totally different beliefs of the Messiahship. So, for example, Jews believe that the Messiah will establish his kingdom and there'll be all justice. He won't be God, he'll be a human. All these sorts of stuff. You have the Christian belief of what the Messiahship is, the fulfillment in the Old Testament of those prophecies, but not all of them. They will be fulfilled on the second coming, and so on and so forth. And then we have the Islamic one, which you are objecting to. When you do a comparison like that, all three, like for like, in parallel comparison, neither of them are the same.
So basically, the only thing difference between the Jewish Messiah and who Christians believe Jesus fulfilling those Jewish prophecies is that Jews believe that this guy will just be a man, right?
No, not just being.
Because every other prophecy we agree with. That's the Messianic prophecies. We believe that Jesus either did fulfill or will fulfill when he comes back. Same, then that's the kingdom and everything else. So I don't understand.
No,
What
so
prophecy of the Messiah in Jewish theology does Christians not believe that that Jesus did fulfill or will fulfill when he returns?
So this again, this is the point. So they never believed in a two-part messiahship. So the going and the coming, that's a Christian and a Muslim belief that we share. But Jews don't believe that the Messiah will come and go.
No, I
Jews
understand
don't
that, but
believe
that's
that.
not a prophecy. Which
Pardon?
prophecy? Which prophecy? Right? You said that there's different prophecies that Jews accept that Christianity doesn't accept. Which one is that?
Okay, so there's a prophecy in the book of Psalms where Jews believe the Messiah will come and dash baby heads on the
What?
sort of stones.
No, they don't.
Sorry.
No, Jewish people do not believe that their Messiah is going to come and dash babies' heads off of the stones. That's a prophecy against Israel.
That's a prophecy against Israel.
Yes,
And who's going to do it against Israel?
not the Messiah.
No. Who's going to do it against Israel?
Not the Messiah. So, as I said, which prophecy are you
No,
alluding
no.
to
Hold on. I didn't
that
ask
the
who's not
Messiah is
going.
going to fulfill to show that to show he's the Messiah?
Hold on, David. I didn't ask who's not going to do it. I asked who's going to do it.
You're asserting something, right?
No, you've made the claim that this
No,
isn't
sir.
a
You made the
prophecy.
claim.
I made the claim.
You made the
I
claim that
know,
the
and
Messiah was
I'm.
going to dash babies' heads against the
That's
ground.
the Jewish belief that when
No,
the
it's not.
Messiah, and that's where you've made a claim. You've made the
Can
claim
you
that
show me
it's
any
not.
Jewish person that? Can you show me Tovia Singer, since he's your favorite rabbi, where Tovia Singer believes that his rabbis or his Messiah is going to come and dash babies' heads against the rocks?
I didn't say Tovia Singer's my favorite rabbi, but that's another that's another thing entirely different. I'm just going to bring up the passage right now.
Can you
Um,
show me any Jew that believes that that's a prophecy of the
I'm
Messiah, please?
gonna
Because you're using it as a prophecy
hold
of
on.
the Messiah. So, can you show me that that's actually what they believe the Messiah will do when he comes? Because I think you're making it up.
Hold on. I'm just getting it up. So Psalms 137
No, see,
9.
Muhammad, you're not listening. Can you show me the Jewish people that they believe this? Except for
Uh,
just reading the verse, because I can read a verse in your Quran and I can misinterpret it and say that Muslims believe this when they don't, right? So you're saying that the Jewish people believe that the Messiah will dash babies' heads off the rock and kill them.
this
That's a
is a
prophecy.
that's a
So
prophecy
which
from the book.
which which Jews believe this?
This is a prophecy from the book of Psalms.
Which Jews believe this?
Mainstream Jews.
No, they don't.
Not the
Prove it.
liberal. No.
Prove it.
Now. Oh, calm down. Now that you're saying no, they don't. Right
Well, they
now,
don't, because you're
and
not offering evidence. You actually have to offer evidence for a positive
hold on,
claim. You just can't
hold,
make a claim.
hold on. I gave you you wouldn't allow me to read the verse. Second, you gave
Be-
me an interpretation of that verse, but denied who it is. but confirming who it's not.
Did you
And
claim that the
thirdly,
Jews
thir-
believe that the Messiah
thirdly,
will kill babies?
this is a prophecy in the. If
Can
you
you?
confirm
You
the old,
said the
hold on,
Jews believe
ho-
that.
hold on. If you confirm the Old Testament that you claimed at the start, right? You confirm the Old Testament, then there's a
Muhammad, don't run.
prophecy. There's a prophecy in the Old Testament that has not been fulfilled, right?
Again,
Now,
Muhammad, can
either
you
that
point
makes
to the Jewish sect
either,
that believes
either
that
that
their Messiah will kill babies when he returns?
either that makes the Book of Psalms
Can
false.
you or
Yeah.
no?
Either that makes the Book of Psalms false. This is the problem that you're having when you dance around.
Muhammad, your initial claim was there are prophecies of the Messiah that the Jews believe that Christianity doesn't. So I asked you which prophecies they were, and you said that the Jews believed that their Messiah would come and kill babies and dash their heads off of rocks. Now, I'm asking you for the Jewish sect that believes that that's what their Messiah would do, instead of you trying to mistranslate their Bible and interpret it into their religion. So show me the Jewish sect that believes this, please.
Right. Thank you. Now let me respond. I said mainstream Judaism. That's Orthodoxy Judaism, not liberal Jews. And as I've given the proof text, not my interpretation, you wouldn't allow me to
Muhammad,
read it. But excuse me, I didn't interrupt you. Allow me to finish. Now,
hang
this is a prophecy.
on,
This is a prophecy made by David in Psalms
Muhammad,
137.
Muhammad,
Right?
Muhammad, Muhammad, hang on. You're asserting that all these Jews believe that. Just send a quote from a prominent Jewish rabbi who says that this is their position. Anybody who agrees with your interpretation is Jewish. That's all Chris is asking for. Because I can go to the Quran, like he said, I can read something that seems pathetic and say, hey, why aren't you doing this? Your book says that. But if you don't believe it, that doesn't work. Just one source, that's all we're asking for.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that, James. He asked for a denomination. I said mainstream Jewish orthodoxy. That can be Hasidic Jews. It does not matter. Apart from liberal Jews, like liberal Christians, who I'm sure a lot of conservatives do not believe to be Christians, I can give you he asked for denominations. I gave you those. If you're asking for scholars, rabbinical scholars that believe this, then yes, I can provide those for you. Give me some time. I'll bring them up. Not a problem. Mainstream. Oh, he's gone. I think there he is.
Muhammad,
Um,
you just stating the Orthodox believe it doesn't make it true.
doesn't make it true. And you stating that this isn't Jesus somehow refutes me.
Again, you're the one that has to make the positive claim, or you made the positive claim, you must supply the evidence. You said that the Orthodox, mainstream Orthodox Jews believe that their Messiah will come and kill babies. I just want the evidence.
Brilliant. Now
And
hold the line.
from
Hold the
them,
line.
not the book.
Brilliant. Hold the line. As I get that up, right? You guys talk, and I'll bring that up. And once that's established, are you gonna now? Will you accept that this is a prophecy that Jesus will have to fulfill?
We will wait for you to prove that
No, 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 no.
mainstream
I'm
Judaism
asking you. I'm
believes that
asking
their
you, Chris.
Messiah is going
Just,
to come and kill
just,
babies and dash their heads off the
ju-
rocks. Go
just
ahead.
so you don't hold on, Chris. Just so you don't dance around after I've provided it. Um, once that's established, are you going to accept that this is something that Jesus will have to fulfill in his second coming?
So just to answer your question, no. If we do not have a clear indication that the Jewish people actually believed that before the time of Jesus Christ, I would not accept that as a presumed prophecy. All I would accept is, yeah, you're right. Some Jewish scholars now do hold to your opinion, but why would I believe that that would be the case? I mean,
So you,
that would be like me asking you why you don't accept the Bible. Like, let's be realistic.
so then you're not affirming the Old Testament. Now, what you've just done,
All right. I'm going to mute you, Muhammad, because you haven't been dishonest till this point. I'm affirming the Old Testament.
Nothing, just sir.
I'm affirming, wait, Milos. I'm affirming the Old Testament. I'm affirming Jewish tradition, but I'm not affirming Jewish reinterpretation during the life of Jesus Christ and after. Please don't misrepresent.
I'm not misrepresenting you. What I'm saying is, if it's held to be a belief before the coming of Jesus Christ's first time, then that's something that you're going to have to accept. Now, what I'm asking is, as
Hey,
I'm doing
Mohammed,
this, I
you,
don't want suddenly a new reinterpretation that, as James has alluded to, that
could you change
yes,
the title of
maybe
the room for you, Mohammed?
but hold on, so someone's talking.
Yeah,
Some
me,
believe
Mohammed.
this, and
Because we're
some.
supposed to be talking about the difference between the Islamic Jesus and the Christian Jesus. And so far, you've quite purposely pushed it towards the Old Testament. I'm wondering why you're trying to stay away from the comparison between the Islamic Jesus and the Christian Jesus.
Um,
That's just
okay. Uh, uh, Sorry, I was responding to James, Chris, and no, as the conversation naturally evolved, we did this comparison, the comparison of, as you said, the Messiahship. So it was not just Christianity and Islam that believes in the Messiahship; it's the Jews also believe in a Messiahship, and since earlier, James. And I were talking about the New Testament and the confirmation of the Old Testament, and Islam being the only one that doesn't confirm the previous two, then that's why I brought it up as a fair comparison. I'm not avoiding anything. But let me just respond back to James before you
But yeah,
interjected
sure.
on that.
Just give me one
Before you
second, then you can
interjected.
respond. Just give me 1 second, then you can respond to James, and I'll shut up for you. But the thing is yeah, you've definitely been doing that because since I've been in the room, and I've been in here before you. That was actually the topic of the room: is the difference between the Christian Jesus and the Islamic Jesus, not the Jewish Jesus. So I'm wondering why you keep trying to run to the Old Testament instead of dealing with the topic.
there should be a comparison between
Right.
the
So,
Islamic
as I
and
said,
exactly the
you
topic.
might have been in the room, but me and James were speaking, and as the conversation progressed, it evolved and included what we had mentioned beforehand. Now, do you have a problem with the Jewish belief of their messiahship?
Do you mind if I jump in here real quick,
I don't
Chris?
have a problem. I don't have a problem with it, but I know that you do, and that's why you're avoiding the Islamic one.
Well, no, I don't have a
So
problem with
let me
it.
just jump in here real
I'm
quick
the
here.
one that brought it
I can
up.
represent Mohammed, I think I can represent the status of the conversation here, and maybe you can agree with me if I'm representing this correctly. You're saying that to reject your interpretation of Psalm 137 is to reject the Orthodox Jewish interpretation of this, right? Now, I think what you're doing here is you're misrepresenting the status of this verse, the understanding of this verse in Orthodox Judaism, and especially misunderstanding it at the time of Christ. So, what I'm going to ask you here is there a document that best represents the Orthodox Jewish interpretation of this passage, approximately contemporaneous to the time of Christ? Do you know what document that is?
It's going to be found out soon from an Islamic point of view.
Okay, so that
I'll tell you
document,
how it's
it
going to
sounds
be
like you don't
found out right
know.
now. It's
Right,
going
it
to be
is.
found out.
It's
Yes,
it's
it's going to be
called,
from Ethiopia, and it's going to be the Book of Revelation, not the Book of Revelation, but the
okay,
deed. I think the deed is going to be found
right.
that
So
Moses used to have.
this is not a topic that you're familiar with. You're not familiar with contemporaneous Jewish interpretation with Christ, right? Or near contemporaneous. So there's a document that was began to be collected in the second century by what's his name, Judah Hanasi, meaning Judah the prince, and it's called the Talmud. You might have heard of this, right? Now the Talmud, a feature of Orthodox Judaism is that Orthodox Jews must affirm the divine status of the Talmud as representing their halakhic interpretation of certain passages, right? So the tradition, the divine tradition, the view of Orthodox Judaism is that Jews were entrusted with a divine tradition by God, which gives them the right to interpret the Torah in a way that must be enjoined by all other Jews when a halakhic consensus is raised. And the Talmud contains many of these halakhic decisions and discussion around this. So when you're attempting to represent the Orthodox Jewish opinion, you're demonstrating that you're completely unfamiliar with the central document pertaining to Orthodox Jewish interpretation. So I think that based on that alone, we can simply reject your representation of Orthodox Jewish understanding of this. However, we can actually go further than that and show not only should we reject your view, but also show that that is completely not the case at all. Because there are exactly 3 places in the Talmud that exist today, which is, not only the 2nd century, but also 4th, and it was redacted up until the 8th century. In the Talmud today, we have exactly 3 places where Psalm 137 is mentioned. And let me provide those to you. The first is in Pesachim 118, right? Do you know what Pesachim? Okay. So the way that the Talmud is organized is it has tractates which have a name that generally pertain to a particular topic, and then it has pages and then an A or B, which is what side of the page it is. So Tractate Pesachim, page 118a, contains one of the mentions. Another one is, let me see it. Gittin 57 and 58 contain a discussion of this as well. And the third one is Avodah Zarah 3b. Those are the 3 mentions of Psalm 137 in the Talmud. And I went ahead and reviewed all 3 of those here while I was listening to this conversation. Now, I know since I reviewed these 3, and you have the chance now because I provided you a citation for this, to review that, and you'll see that there is not a single thread or shred of Orthodox Jewish interpretation in the Talmud, right, at this time for this. They do not interpret this in the way that you're saying. And in fact, if you look at the Pesachim 118 passage here, I believe it's that one. No, actually, it's the Gittin 58 passage. In Gittin 58, what it actually says instead is that this action is taken by God alone, right? So to say that the Messiah is the one that does this punishment here would be to say that
Right,
the Jews understood the Messiah to be God
right,
himself, right?
right. So the
So
question I have for
what's
you,
your
Melis,
conclusion
then,
here? Please
yeah.
let me
So
finish this real quick here. I don't know who's speaking. Let me finish it real quick. So not only does the actual Orthodox, I know I've been talking for a while, I apologize. So not only does Orthodox Judaism at the near contemporaneous to Christ completely disagree with you, but it all actually supports Christianity in some strange way, if what you're saying is true about this passage being fulfilled by the Messiah in some sense. I apologize for the long response.
yeah, no worries. I was gonna ask you literally.
Oh, why?
Well, I can ask the whole panel there anyway. He's back now. Yeah, it's better. Yeah, Millis, I was gonna ask you, how can you, in your faith, whether it's Judaism, whatever branch it may be, how can you differentiate between the Antichrist and the Messiah, as you say? Can you tell me some how distinction?
So I am not a Jew, I am a Christian.
Right, right. Anyone that follows the Judaism faith in it?
Sorry, SHH, can I respond to Milo, and then I'll let you come back to yours? Apologies. I know you've been waiting for some time. Forgive me, brother. So, Milos, again, when you're referencing the Talmud, what you also forgot to mention is the oral Torah. Do you know about the oral Torah?
Of course I do. Now, in Orthodox Judaism, the oral Torah is considered to be the tradition handed down to the 70 elders at the foot of Mount Sinai. Correct me if I'm wrong here. At the foot of Mount Sinai, whenever Moses was at the top of Mount Sinai, correct?
Yes. So the
Right. And so are you aware of that oral Torah, the view of Orthodox rabbis, which you said were mainstream rabbis? Do you know what documents were produced that, according to the confessions of Orthodox Judaism, do you know what documents were produced by that oral?
I don't think I've understood your question
Okay,
correctly. If
let,
you're
let me
if
explain
you're
this
saying
here.
as to
Sure.
what
Hold on, give me
text.
just a moment here. I'll make this very clear here. So, in Orthodox Judaism, from their position, that oral tradition that was given to the rabbis, or I'm sorry, not rabbis, but the elders at the foot of Mount Sinai, that Orthodox tradition was the, I think it's called the, anyhow, the vowelization that accompanies the Torah and the interpretation of that. And if you reject that the Talmud is the authentic product of that oral tradition, then you are putting yourself outside of Orthodox Judaism, according to Chabad Lubavitch and most other Orthodox Hasidic sects, right? So I do not not know what the oral Torah is, but because I know what the oral Torah is, I'm able to know that a product of that and representative of that is the Talmud that was codified by Judah Hanasi here. So I am citing the oral Torah to you. As a
Brilliant.
defeater, you are saying that I don't know what the oral Torah.
No, no, no. Now, brilliant. That's you've got to the point that I need you to get at. Right. So the oral Torah, just for everyone else who isn't aware of this or know about this. So the oral Torah isn't the oral memorization or recitation of the Torah itself, but it's the interpretations recorded in redaction because of the belief of, how can I put it, everything, for some odd reason the Jews believed that the meanings of it should not be in plain text but more in a redacted meaning, and then those interpretations are.
Before you continue, you're using redacted in a way that I've never heard before. Would you please supply your definition of redaction here in this usage?
Uh, y- yes, I'm using the word redacted, meaning I don't want to use the word uh, enigmatic, which is what the what's his called? What's his name? Rabbi Firestone used from University of California. So that's, I'm using redacted to mean a more reduced rather than a more enigmatic. So if you know what the enigma was during World War II, the enigmatic meaning
No,
secretive.
no, I'm familiar with what enigma means. I'm also familiar with what redaction means. And to redact something is to remove or edit or amend a thing or an idea. I've never heard it used synonymously with enigmatic, right? So I
No,
understand how you're using the word now. I
I
understand.
didn't use it. I didn't use it synonymously. I didn't want to use it in the manner that uh, uh, Rabbi Firestone said it in, which is basically enigmatic, which is you have interpretations based on, um, uh, again, this is where his language, not mine. So again, I'm quoting him. Oh, who's gone? Shush has gone. SHS. So apologies, Sush. So his Rabbi Firestone's explanation of this is, I guess I have to be offensive. There's no other way of doing it, which is, he said, it's more, it's it's more secretive and uh, in their belief, respectful not to have it expressed. So that's what Rabbi Firestone explained it as. I don't want anyone to walk away thinking that the oral tradition is some sort of hocus pocus sort of. Uh,
Muhammad.
Hello.
Actually, you're just we are going outside the topic. Let's come back to the Christian Jesus is real, the Muslim Jesus is and is
No, no, hold on, Gibor.
let's take it.
I apologize. I know I've been
No,
speaking
no,
for
no.
quite some time, but
No,
I
I
need to
know.
respond to
But
my
actually, this
loss.
is the Islamic. No, this is the Islamic problem. Actually, they never stick to the topic. Actually, they keep on deviating and go to the next.
I can't hear you,
And
Gibor.
this
I
is
can't hear
not
you.
an
What are you
important
saying?
topic for us about the Jewish tradition and all. We are talking about Christianity. I'm saying we are talking about Christianity and Islam. So let's come to that and we'll talk about that.
Mohammed here. I'm going to have to jump in again real quick here. I'm not trying to say this in an insulting way or anything like this, but it is very clear that you are woefully unfamiliar with the information you're trying to summon to make your point. You're trying to represent Orthodox Judaism, and you didn't even know what the Talmud is, right? That's I couldn't imagine that happening. And this isn't like an indictment on you as a person or anything like that. Orthodox Judaism is rather difficult to wrap your head around. There's a lot of kind of stuff like that. And I suspect that even if you are accurately citing the opinions of Ignaz, what's his name? Um, Ignaz Firestone, right? Even if you are accurately representing him, which I don't,
Reuben Firestone. His name's Reuben Firestone.
we were talking about a different fellow. But anyhow, even if you are accurately representing him here, I think that I don't think you're accurately representing him here because I don't think you're understanding what he's saying. If he used the word redaction in a way that where you thought it meant esoteric, I could not possibly know what he would be talking about. Instead of you attempting to represent his view on this, would you instead send whatever link you're reading from over to?
Happy to do so. More than happy to do so. And just just for your information, Milo, as you were talking, I was trying to get up Jewish belief of Psalms 137 verse 9, and I will forward that to you as well. Are you denying, by the way, Chris has left, but are you denying that within Judaism, this prophecy is not to be prescribed, isn't believed to be prescribed to the Messiah?
Yeah. So, are you familiar with the Passover Haggadah? Or do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, so the Passover Haggadah is a prayer that is said every Passover by pretty much every Jew. This isn't simply Orthodox Jews; it's also conservative Jews. Even Reformed Jews will do this. This is a very central part of Judaism, independent of any sort of denomination or anything like this. And in the Passover Haggadah, it's unique because what they say is they provide us a way of identifying who takes the action according to Judaism in the Old Testament, right? The Passover Haggadah is clear that it is Yod He Vod He, Yahweh, the great God, who led Israel out of the Exodus. And the way that the Passover Haggadah arrives at this conclusion is because the one who is said to be doing this is Yod He Vod He in Scripture. So the way that we identify whether an action is taken place by an agent of Yahweh or Yahweh himself is who's attributed performing that action, right? So in Psalm 137:9, if you're familiar with the context of that, what is being described is um, the ones who will come and destroy, or who have come and to destroy Jerusalem. The same will be rebutted to them by others, right? And the Passover Haggadah specifically cites this example of from the view of the Passover Haggadah as being not God, but instead, and actually the Talmud takes this position too. Um, I don't remember the source off the top of my head, but it's very, very, very clear that this is not a an action taken by God by this, and because of that, it's not an action taken by the Messiah. So I think what you're doing is, if you are attempting to accurately represent Jewish interpretation, you're doing this woefully inaccurately. And I know it's very difficult to do that because it's very difficult to approach Jewish interpretation on a lot of things. But what I'm saying here is, I think what your question was do I affirm or deny that this is the Jewish interpretation? And what I'm saying here is everything I know about Jewish interpretation points at this not being that. And I've pointed three citations in the Talmud that affirm that as well too, right? So I'm looking forward for you being able to provide a citation that from a Jewish exegete or authority or whatever it is that says that this is the case from the Orthodox position. I'm looking forward to that, but that has not been provided yet. Hopefully that answers your question.
Cheers for that response, Milo. Again, a lot to chew here, so let me dissect slowly. Apologies to Gabor, who gets frustrated on this. Right. So if I respond to again backwards to the last question to the first question, I did ask you of Jewish understanding of this, and you did say that they do not believe that it's God. They don't believe the Messiah to be God either. So if it's not God that's doing it, and it's not the Messiah, and you're believing that it's not the Messiah that's doing it, then who is doing this prophecy? Who's fulfilling this prophecy? As you know, the context of 1379 is that it's a revengeful act for what the Jews had experienced under the hands of the Persians. Yeah. So in Psalm,
No. I don't think anyone would agree with that. I don't think hardly anyone understands that this is the Jews that will be doing this, or a direct agent of the Jews as well, right? Instead, we see this idea in Psalm 137:9 expressed kind of in the same way as another passage, which I don't remember which one it is. He who lives by the sword dies by the sword, right? Or in Isaiah 45, where it talks about how God is able to use the calamity of the world in order to retribute, punishment upon those that have harmed His holy ones, right? So I don't think I'm certainly not familiar of anyone that says that this is going to be, done by God Himself or done by the nation of Israel or anything like that. Maybe you can point me to someone who does.
no, okay. So you said that this isn't done by God, right? And is that correct? You believe this revengeful act isn't done by God, correct?
Right, in the sense that God doesn't come down from heaven and start smashing babies' heads. I don't think that that's the interpretation of any Orthodox rabbis. Instead, I think that they tend to understand that the destruction of Babylon will come by the way of other kind of warmongering people that are enemies of God, and through fighting and so on and so forth, that'll happen. That the fulfillment of 139 or 137:9 happens by other warlike people coming into Babylon and destroying Babylon in the way that the Babylonians destroyed Jerusalem in a warlike way. That's what I understand it to be kind of understood by most within Orthodox Judaism and a lot of Christianity as well. If you disagree with this and instead think that Orthodox Judaism understands it a different way, I would love to see who takes a different view and where they represent.
I go hard in the paint, yeah, homie, I'm a saint. Right or right. Many claim they lie.